Hey everyone, welcome to It's Messy, but It's So Good. So nice to have you here. Thanks for listening. And my podcast explores captivating journeys of individuals following their passions amidst life's challenges. And I have so many diverse people on this podcast. And I hope that you will enjoy this show because today we have Joey Benitez. And the episode is Global Adventures, Unlocking Self-Love and Gratitude Through Travel. A little bit about Joey, who is actually a friend of mine for like 35 years. And she's a registered nurse and an alternative wellness practitioner. And she's also a certified Kripalu yoga instructor and therapist. And she's living now in Oaxaca, Mexico. And the podcast is all about travel and how one finds their confidence, adventure, connection through traveling. And I know you're going to enjoy this show, especially if you have that dream of really expanding into travel and new experiences and finding out about new cultures. So enjoy the show. Hello, Joey. How are you?
I'm good. Good. So nice to connect with you. I mean, it's been a while. I think I saw you a couple of years ago when we were hanging out in Warwick.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's good to see you.
Yeah. Just for the listeners, like Joey and I go back literally like 35 years or 34 years because my son just turned 34. And we were new moms together, and we kind of lost touch for a while, but we're back. And I just find like your lifestyle so fascinating. And I thought that the listeners would get a lot of value listening to your journey and your story. And, I just want to talk a little bit, though, about your background. I know you, as I am, a registered nurse, and you've probably been a registered nurse for as long as me, which is about 40 years, if not more.
That's right. That's right. We don't have to put a number on it.
Yeah. Well, I want to take credit for that because that is like a really long time of being in the profession. And there's been many changes. And like me, you went more into the alternative or the wellness route. And can you say a little bit about that, about what inspired you to go that way? Because I know I was inspired because the healthcare system just wasn't doing it for me.
I think I when I first went into nursing, of course, I think most of us as nurses tend to go into helping professions because we actually want to help. And I think when I first started in nursing, there were just, I enjoyed it. And yet I saw the writing on the wall. I felt the writing on the wall. There was, there seemed to be less patient contact as our technology evolved. And I think one of the reasons why I went into nursing is because I really enjoyed the contact with patients. And that started changing for me. I also found as a nurse that I was giving medications to and I think that's when it first started for me. There were a few things. One was giving medications to patients. I worked in psychiatric nursing for most of my career. And I remember seeing the changes that the patients went through when we gave them medications. So I started questioning the medications that we were giving to them. And so I thought there's got to be a better way. So, that was part of it. The other thing was I worked in the emergency room at St. Luke's Hospital in Manhattan. And I had a young kid come in. He was like 9 years old, and he came in through the emergency room, and his parents were on vacation. They were away, as it turns out. and he was having an asthma attack, and we tried to revive him, and he passed. He died. That was really difficult for me, and I noticed that the staff had been, there was no talking about this as a group. There was no coming together and maybe just talking about your feelings around a young child that has just died. There was not any room for that there. And so that also made me look at maybe nursing is not where I need to be. Maybe I just need to think. And alternative nursing, when I was which was in the 70s, that didn't even exist yet. So I was thinking about it. I thought, what would I do? What else would I do? So anyway, I eventually had a family of my own and decided to get out of nursing. And I, at the time, got involved at a Kripalu, which was a large yoga center, and I became a teacher. That wasn't my intention when I started. I really, when I first became a yoga teacher, my intention when I did the training was really for yoga for myself, selfishly. I wanted to learn what yoga was all about. And then eventually, as soon as I graduated, as soon as I finished, I started working as a yoga teacher, and then got into Reiki, and then got into just different modalities, just different ways of connecting and touching people, which is how it all started. So that was pretty much my route.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just wondering, like, are you practicing now, like teaching yoga or doing any of the other wellness activities that you had done back then?
Well, I'm now living in Mexico. I left the U.S. In the beginning of 2021. I was teaching, and I was teaching online. I was teaching on Zoom. When I was living in the U.S., I was teaching about 3 classes a week, and I really enjoyed it, really liked it. And of course, as we all know, the pandemic happened. So I started teaching on Zoom. I started teaching online, and that recently stopped. More people were going back, and so I decided I'm going to start teaching here in Mexico. So I've started teaching here in Mexico, and I was concerned at first because I'm bilingual, but I've never taught in Spanish, so that was a concern. But it's been fun.
Yeah, because it's really more about the energy of it all, right?
Yeah. And I hope to do some other practices here. I'm in Oaxaca, in the state of Oaxaca in Mexico, which means that there's a lot of all kinds of indigenous healing, and there's all kinds of modalities that I'm not even aware of yet, that I'm just discovering, that I'd like to get into, know more about, and maybe use.
That's right. Yeah.
People who are looking for something alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I just want to honor that because, just life and all the different things that we do. And this podcast is really about being passionate, soul driven, whatever it is that we do out there. And I know that has guided you through all the different chapters, So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and just focus in now on your travel.
Okay.
And you said you left in 2021. What would you say, like, if you had to give it a name, like, because, like nomads and, house sitting nomads and all that, what would you consider it called? Just what you're doing? Because basically you're going to share. But my understanding is, and I might be wrong, is that you're house sitting in different places in the world, and you're living in the culture and you're doing your thing. And I want to know, like, how you got inspired to do that, and if you could bring us through that journey.
Okay, and can I add something to the last thing that we were talking about?
Absolutely. Sure.
Just wanted to add that when you said we just never know, I think everything that we learn, it doesn't matter what it is, can be used. We don't always know how it's going to be used, but if there is a passion for something and it's leading you in a direction that may feel like it's the opposite of something, or it doesn't seem like they're similar or they're going to go together, that, you know, in life, we just never know those skills that we use or something that we really love, how it's going to be used, how we can use it in maybe even helping others, especially, right? Helping others, because that's really what it's really about, for me these days. Okay. So in answer to, the travel, first of all, I want to say that my father was a merchant marine. Now that doesn't always translate into anything except for me. I think I was always very creative. I think I was born that way. I was always interested in different cultures and different countries and different languages. Okay. And that my father was a merchant marine, I think kind of fueled that a bit for me. So as an adult, I think I started, when the pandemic, okay, first of all, I started traveling, when my kids were young. I was homeschooling them at the time. And my way of thinking was, if I'm going to homeschool, I can homeschool anywhere in the world. Smart woman. Anywhere. So I started traveling with my children at that point. I'd done some traveling before. I've always been interested in travel. When I was married, my husband and I went to Europe, and we rented a car and just went all over Europe. And I thought, oh, this is really a great way to travel and also see what areas I would like to return to at some point. So when I did have children, and my children were, I think my daughter, was probably 6 years old, 6 or 7. And I had a girlfriend at the time that wanted to travel as well. And so like I said, I was homeschooling, and she said, she suggested we go to Spain. And I thought, yeah, okay, let's do this. We'll go to Spain. And when I travel, I like to travel for a period of time. I'm not a really good tourist traveler, in that I don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just tend to want to really, immerse myself in the culture and in the languages if I could. And so I, went to Spain for 2 months, with my kids, and we rented, and friends were asking me, well, how do you manage to do that? It's just so expensive. Well, at the time I was able to, my friend was able to, rent an apartment for a month. It was before Airbnb existed. And for a month, and she decided she wanted to go back, and I wanted to stay for another month. So I found another place to stay for a month, and it wasn't expensive. And, Spain has markets, and, like food was not expensive. So we were able to do this, and we were south of Spain. So it was quite beautiful, and it was a wonderful experience for all three of us. My husband joined us when he could. But for the most part, it was me and the children, and we just met interesting people and interesting artists. And, so that's really when it started. And then a few years later, another friend, I have these friends who like to travel, and they'll call me, hey, listen, are you interested in, doing this? And this friend, she was a midwife, and she wanted to travel to, Mexico. She wanted to see how midwifery was done in Mexico, and she thought it would be a good idea. She was also homeschooling her son. So we went to Mexico, San Miguel de Allende at the time. And we stayed there for a couple of months, and, we met all other families that were traveling with their children. that were making, doing this, like actually making this a possibility where you can travel with your children, or you can travel if you're a single mom, or even if you're single, just to be able to travel. So that was really a nice period of time. We stayed in Mexico at that time for about 6 months.
Wow.
Each time I went somewhere, I stayed there for longer. So I really enjoyed that, and came back to the States. And I didn't travel internationally with the kids again until. No, I didn't, because at that point they were getting older and they had their own lives, and they were going in their own direction. But I went to Peru in 2020, January 2020.
Wow. Right before the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic. And my intention was I was going to be going to Peru for a month. And then once I was done, because I was going to the jungle, I wanted to go, and I didn't know how that, you can sail to Brazil. There's other places where you can go right from Peru. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this when I finish this. And of course, as we know, the pandemic hit, and I was traveling around Peru, and I was on my way to Machu Picchu. All right. So I landed in this little town called Ollantaytambo, and I stayed there, waiting to see what the hell was going to happen. And while I was there, the pandemic hit. Many expats or people from the United States that were also trying to get to Machu Picchu and got stuck there in that town decided to take flights back home. I decided, no, I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to go to the States. My children, who are adults at this point, I spoke to them. I wanted to know what was going on, and they were sharing. They're in New York, so we know what was going on in New York.
Right.
And they said to me, "Mom, stay in Peru if you can. Don't bother coming back to New York. Stay in Peru." And I did. So I stayed in Peru for 6 months. And I loved it. And I was in the foothills of Machu Picchu. I mean, I was in these, it was a spiritual experience for me to be able to commune with these mountains and the indigenous people that were there. It was just amazing to me, the culture there, because many people in this area, Ollantaytambo, don't even speak Spanish. And their traditions are different. And we had no pandemic. There was nothing in Ollantaytambo. Nobody was showing up with COVID. But within my 6 months there, I must have been in there 4 months already. They started allowing people to come back. Because of course, in Peru, if wherever the pandemic caught you, that's where you were going to stay. You couldn't come back home. And so after about 4 months, there were busloads of people coming back home. And when those busloads of people showed up, it was like within a week already the pandemic was starting to spread. And I decided at that point, maybe it's best to go home. And so I did. And once I got back home, this must have been October, November of that year, I'm in New York. It feels very different to me. It feels like I'm in Twilight Zone, right? There's just so much going on. There's a lot of anxiety around the pandemic. Meanwhile, I was pretty isolated. So I wasn't experiencing all that fear. So here I come back to New York City, and it's just, it feels really uncomfortable for me. Energetically, I just felt like, you know what? Not quite sure where I'm going from here. I don't think the U.S. is where I want to stay. So I sold my house. I packed up. I decided to come to Oaxaca. Now, my children used to come to Oaxaca. They were familiar with Oaxaca. I'd never been here. It's a big artist community. And they decided, and they said to me, "Mom, you should check it out. You should just go and check it out if you like it. I mean, you can always go somewhere else." So I came and I stayed in Oaxaca. I've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been wonderful. To me, this is sort of my home base for now. And I've been traveling from here. Like I just got back from Brazil, and I was traveling to different parts of Brazil with my partner for 3 months. We were just around, and I fell in love with Brazil. And now we're thinking we may go to Colombia. We may go to South America, to other parts of South America for some extended periods of time. As much as I love Oaxaca, I just feel like I'm here. I have a short life. I don't have, it's like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, you have that passion to try something else.
Exactly. So since things have pretty much settled, as far as the pandemic, and doesn't seem to be, although I know there's parts of the world where there is a lot of fear around it still, even in the US with COVID, I decided I wanted to travel again. So, that's what traveling for me is, really connecting with different cultures, seeing how different we are and how alike we are. There are similarities, right? I was raised in Spanish Harlem. So here I am in Oaxaca, Mexico, and it feels like I'm in a barrio, it feels like, the bodegas, and there's places here. This reminds me of how it must have been in Puerto Rico, so yeah.
So are there people from all over the world there, or, so you must be meeting up a lot of different people from all over.
So the pandemic really changed a lot of things for a lot of people. As we know, there are more nomads because of everything that went on, and businesses closed and they had to work online. I meet a lot of people that are traveling, and some of them are traveling and hanging out here in this part of Mexico for a period of time. And some people are moving on and just trying to find where it feels comfortable for them. In some ways, trying to find home for them. I meet many expats who have decided that they don't want to go back to the US, or they don't want to go back to Canada. They want to stay here. They want to make home here. And there are other people who they're still home. Their home is wherever home is for them in the other other parts of the world. And they come here for long periods of time, for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and they stay here. So yes, I've also found my experience here, and having traveled for as many years as I have, is that I've never seen, and I think a part of this was because of everything that was going on racially in the US around and after the pandemic. There are more African Americans leaving the US and deciding to stay in Mexico, in Panama, in Lisbon, like all over. I'm in touch. I see what's going on. When I go on Facebook, I can see these groups. And honestly, I've never experienced so many people of color moving and staying in other parts of the world, and bringing their children and educating their children here, and wanting their children to have a second language, a third language. So I've never seen it. I feel like I was a pioneer in my traveling with
definitely.
Now I see it all over. I went to a Thanksgiving function, a Thanksgiving party gathering, this past November. And the photo was so big that the photographer had to keep on coming. There were at least 25 families.
Wow.
It had come from New York, New Jersey, different parts, of the South, Baltimore, Maryland, different parts of, and it's really beautiful to see it, because there's such a mixture of cultures within those families, and it's really beautiful.
And it's people.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, definitely the pandemic definitely gave birth to people looking at different alternative lifestyles and to traveling and so forth. I mean, I'm a big fan of House Hunters International.
Right.
And I'm amazed, like people from Kansas, like they move to Lisbon, they take their, yes, a lot of them have job opportunities and so forth. I get that. But it seems like the fear level for expanding and going global has definitely shifted.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think part of it is also that people realized, you know what? So many people died during the pandemic. And so, people really looked at their lives, right? Where are we? What is it that we want to do? What are we waiting to do when we retire? What if we never retire? What if, so I think that it really raised that question for a lot of people. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, there are many, many expats that come to these countries, at least this part of Oaxaca, although I was in Lisbon the year before last, and I saw a lot of that going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as where you're staying, have you been house sitting or have you just rented places for extended periods of time?
Well, I've done both. When I was in New York, I went to see my family in New York, but I decided I just wanted to spend a little more time in Brooklyn, especially. And so I did house sit. I house sat a rabbit. Very Wolfie. Wolfie was his name.
Oh,
adorable. I honestly had not really been familiar with rabbits. I had a tenant in my house when I was in New Jersey. She lived in the apartment downstairs and she had a rabbit. She had adopted this rabbit from her daughter who was going off to college. And so she decided to keep the rabbit. So, but that I was not familiar with rabbits. Well, I fell in love with this rabbit. He was totally entertaining. He was so amusing to me. And he was also like a night animal, like me. He was like a night creature. Like he'd come out at night and he'd do these tricks. And he was just very...
And you didn't have to walk him.
And I didn't have to. And if I can tell you that they set it up for him, that he had a little hotel and he had a little gym and it was funny as hell. So I took care of this rabbit. And then later on, I went to Lake Chapala here in Mexico, and I took care of 5 dogs, which I will never do again. 5 dogs and 1 cat. And they were all rescue dogs, and they were all interesting characters, and they definitely had their own ways of functioning. Yeah. And having never really, again, I didn't, I like dogs, but 5,
that's a bit much.
and quite a bit. Yeah. But I'm glad I did it. It was a good experience for me. And to be in Lake Chapala was interesting for me too. That's quite a, it's far away from Oaxaca's a huge country. So it was pretty far. It was pretty nice. So
yeah. So people, either way, for people listening that are inspired to, go travel and to follow some of this passion that they might be feeling, it's either house sitting or renting a place for a period of time. So either works.
So you asked me about here. You were asking me about how how people do this. Now, for me, when I came to Oaxaca, I just happened to find a place. I'm still in the same place when I first landed here.
You're a good tenant.
And I just love it here. I mean, I'm in a hacienda that was expanded. So it's, I had this small apartment, and there's all these apartments all around. There's 15 apartments here. And, I've developed, close connections with some people here. Some people come year after year. Some people stayed with me. They just stayed. So I developed this connection with these people here. And, one of the things, along with alternative medicine and alternative healing, for me has always been this sense of, creating an intentional community. So in some ways, this feels like an intentional community to me. We all have our own separate apartments, separate kitchens, and we come together if we want to. There are common areas where we can come together. And to me, that's always been something that I want to do. And as I go forward, go to Colombia, or if I think of deciding to stay somewhere else, that's what I look for. I look to see, I don't want to rent a space where I'm kind of isolated from everybody. That's not of interest for me. I like my own time. I like I enjoy time by myself. I'm a painter as well, and I enjoy this and I need that. But I also enjoy having the option of having other people around. And I think that isolation is not something that I'm looking for, especially as I get older. I want to be around other people. I want to be around older people. I want to be around dogs. I want to be around young children. I want to hear, I don't want to be in a senior citizen facility. I don't want that either. So yeah, this has been good for me. There are Airbnbs. There are many Airbnbs that are available for a lot of people. And if people are interested in traveling and there's a particular place that they're thinking about, check it out. Do an Airbnb for a week. I mean, if you were to do an Airbnb here in Oaxaca, as soon as you get here for a week or two, you start talking about, well, maybe you'll start meeting people. Well, maybe, I'm looking at a rental. It's a possibility. I'd like to rent I know this place. Let me send you this address. Let me send you this number so that you don't have to continue doing Airbnbs. It's nice to have that option, but you don't have to travel that way. You don't always have to travel that way. And for me, even when I started traveling, when I first started coming to Mexico, I always had faith, and this is the way I'd find something. As soon as I landed here, and I would, let's say, go to San Miguel, and this was many years ago. This is like more than 25 years ago. I'd ask the cab driver, "Hey, listen, do you know of a place, blah, 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 blah?" And he would say, "Yeah." "Oh, listen, I have a friend. And he may have a place. He may have an apartment." Same thing happened when we were in Brazil. I went to Brazil, and cab drivers are great. And so we take an Uber, and we're explaining to this guy that we'd like to stay more time. And does he know? And he says, "Oh yeah, let me take you. I'm going to take you right now. I have a friend who has this blah, blah, blah." And that's where we stayed. Wow. So sometimes if you want to adventure, there's definitely, a lot of opportunity for that. And there's places to stay where you're not so expensive, and doesn't have to be hotels and this kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm curious about if you stay longer than 6 months, you have to then come back to the US and then come back in, right? Because of visas and so forth.
Yes. My experience here, and I could have very easily have just gotten citizenship, which, by the way, I probably do this time around. There was a me that thought, well, you're going to be going somewhere else, so why do you want to get citizenship? Well, I've been here for 3 years now. So as soon as I get back to the US, which I will be doing in the next month, like in March, I'm going to go to the embassy and get that, get that moving. And get citizenship. Yes. And yes, 6 months here. They give you 6 months. Sometimes they give you less. During the pandemic, that became an issue. Some people were getting 90 days and all that craziness. I think they're back to normal where they're giving people 6 months now again. You can get citizenship here. It depends on how much money you're making and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to get into that here. But the last time I had to renew, I went to San Diego, which is, right there, right near Mexico. And I stayed in San Diego for a day, 2 days, and came back, and we've got 6 more months in Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a really good friend that lives in Costa Rica, and, she has citizenship there now, but, I was talking to some of her friends who are still in the US, and they have houses there, and they go to Nicaragua,
right,
and then they come right back in, but getting citizenship in Costa Rica, I think, is a little more challenging because there's so many people that have gone there. But anyway, There's a way.
Yeah, and Europe, I think sometimes they make it a little more difficult because I was in Lisbon and I wanted to go back for a longer period of time. And my understanding of how it works in Lisbon is that if you're there for 6, first of all, you have to ask. I don't exactly know how it works, but what I was told was if you're there for the maximum, you have to leave for a period of time before they allow you to come back in. At least this is Portugal anyway. But yeah, Mexico's economy is also changing a lot. And I wonder if there's a lot going on here in Mexico. There's a lot of, yeah, there's more money coming in here now. Because they allowed people to come into Mexico. I think it was really advantageous for them. There's railroads, there's new railroads. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on here. So things are going to be changing here a lot, I think, in the next few years. And I think part of that was due to how they had this open door policy here during the pandemic. People were able to come.
And they see that it's to their advantage to allow that. So
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Time will tell, right?
Yeah, time will tell.
Yes.
So out of all the places that you've traveled to, is there one place that you really love the most? I mean, there could be different places for different reasons you liked it, but you are in Mexico now, and it seems to be your home base. What have you loved the most?
So before I say this, I have to say in all fairness, I think there are places that I think that would be my Shangri-La. That would be the place that, oh yeah, if I go there, I think I would love it there. When the truth is that we take ourselves everywhere we go. It's so, if there's stuff going on with you in Mexico, there's going to be stuff going on with me when I go to Europe. It doesn't matter because it's really not always about the location, right?
You're so right, Joey.
Right. So I'm in Oaxaca. There are some things that I don't like that much about Oaxaca. Now, Oaxaca is a huge state again, and their beach, they're on the Pacific, is like a 7-hour drive if you want to get to water. Right? If you want to get to the ocean. All right. They have just finished. I mean, this has been going on. This has been an ongoing project now for years. They just opened up their super highway. I mean, I'm talking last week. Finally. So instead of taking 7 hours to get to the ocean, it takes 3, which is going to change things around here. It's going to change a lot for a lot of people because 7 hours is a long time. So, okay. So I like nature, and I live in the center. I live right smack in the center of Oaxaca. It's like there's this big art scene, lots of galleries, lots of music. It's a fabulous place. Now, if I want to get to, and Oaxaca's gorgeous, and there are waterfalls, and there are lakes, but I have to get out there. I have to rent a car or figure it out by bus or something to do that. I just went on a hike a few weeks ago, and it was absolutely beautiful. And it felt like I was in heaven, and I was surrounded by nature. And I thought, yeah, this is, I think it's like living in Manhattan, and you think there's nothing else when you live in Manhattan. You're kind of, there's no place else to go. And then you take a train to Queens
or you take a bus to Warwick.
Right. That's right. You just go on and, you go into nature and you discover, okay, so it's possible for me to live in Manhattan and actually experience nature. And I think that's what I come to living here in Oaxaca. It's like, I can live here and I can enjoy nature. There's ways of doing it. I loved Brazil. I absolutely adored Brazil. I don't speak Portuguese though. And for those of you who think that Spanish and Portuguese are really close, not. So that was a bit of a barrier if I was going to some parts of Brazil where they weren't used to having a lot of foreigners. So I found the communication. And one of the things that's really important for me is to learn the language wherever it is that I am. And I've been fortunate because I speak Spanish. I was raised with the language, so it's comfortable for me. So I can, because that's how you learn the culture. It's really hard to learn the culture when you don't speak the language and you don't understand the language. So I think, as much as I love Brazil, I've been Duolingoing, Portuguese, I'd love to go back. I'd like to spend more time there, maybe 6 months to a year. And I was on the water there in Brazil, and
where were you in Brazil?
I was in Bahia when I first got there, in Salvador, which is where the slaves first came through from. So there's geographically, Africa is not far from this part of Brazil, and so there are many. There were many Africans and people that came here whose descendants were from Africa. There's a lot of that kind of culture and dress and religion and food in that whole area of Bahia. So that was like fascinating for me. As a woman of color, if you're not a woman of color, you may not know what I'm talking about, but this whole hair thing where, I'm being from the United States, where you had to straighten your hair and your hair was straightened because you had to kind of fit into whatever the norm was. That's changed now, of course. It's been many years and that's changing all over. But being able to go to Salvador and seeing women proudly, just their hair is like all over the place. And, you just see it all over the place. And, their dress, their way of dressing, like they're Brazilian and they're very much African in their hearts. We love that. I really enjoyed that. But then again, I also feel that when I go to Brooklyn, I go to Park and Brick, I'm like, oh man, I'm home. This is great. Yeah. So I'd like to return there. I would love to return there. But there's also, I'd like to go to Colombia. I'd like to spend some time in Medellin. I'd like to do some salsa dancing there. Yeah. Well, I think there are parts of Africa I'd like to go to. So there are places I'd like to discover. The thing is, with travel, you may have some idea of where it is that you want to go, but if you're considering the possibility of maybe spending more than a few weeks there, check it out first. Check it out if you can. If you can afford, if you can afford to do it, if you have the time to do that, if your schedule allows, wherever it is that you think you'd like to go and maybe stay there for an extended period of time, go check it out first. Yeah. Feel it out. For me, it's not even about seeing out, but check it out. And the other thing too that I want to say that I found I wasn't sure how it was going to be to travel with my children. I didn't know how they would adjust or how they would feel in an environment that wasn't their own environment that they were used to. I love traveling with my kids. I met so many people through my kids. We'd go to local parks and there'd be a family there and the kids would start interacting, and then I'd meet the mom, and then I'd meet the dad. And then before I knew it, I was invited to their house and we were invited to their house for dinner. Right. Then we met other people. So, traveling with kids is great. Yeah. I really enjoyed, when we spent time in Spain as well. We were right on the water. We were right across from Morocco. And I remember there were artists who would be doing sand art, and my kids would, they'd go and they'd interact with them. And then I'd meet the artists, and then I'd meet other artists through those artists, so, it's really lovely. The kids are just, wonderful, in that respect. It's probably like, for some people who have dogs and there's doggy parks. I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say it. You meet people when you have a dog. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's what I've been told. I don't have a dog, but that's what I've been told, that they meet people. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to switch gears a second, because this podcast is all about overcoming challenges. So what would you say were the biggest challenges that made things a little bit messy sometimes in traveling and being in different cultures?
I think like I said, like in Brazil, the challenge for me was the language, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to a country where you don't understand the language, and that was one challenge. I think the other, let me see, I'm trying to think, it's so funny that question, Fran, because I'm expecting that there's going to be challenges when I'm traveling. I mean, it's just a given. And I think it's a mental thing. It's really a mental thing for me. So I know that this is how I go through in life for the most part. And I don't always have the faith like that. And many times I do. And one of the things that I say to myself is everything always works out for you. Everything has always worked out for you. Even when I thought it wasn't, even when I went through a divorce, and even when I went, it's like those challenges that I think, oh man, how is this going to happen? Somehow I get to the other side because I have faith. And again, I work on that every day, that I'm going to get to the other side. So, I try, and I tend to get anxious. So it's not as if, I'm this calm, guru, like, no, I deal with my own angst. And when I feel that angst coming up, I got to talk to myself and kind of go into my breath and say to myself, everything always works out for you because there's safety. It's safety no matter what. One of the challenges has been being here in Mexico for the 3 years. I got COVID for 2 years, 1 year, and then the other year I got COVID. And this year, when I got back, I was here for a couple of months when I got back from Brazil, and I got dengue. So the challenge, that's it. If anything has been a challenge, it's been my health, to make sure my health is okay. But I also tie this into, if I am really stressed out and anxious and I'm living my life out of that, my body is going to get stressed and I am going to get sick. So I try. And those 2 times that I got COVID, they were during travel, on my flights.
Very common. Yeah.
So for me, as much as I love to travel, I am not crazy about that. Planes and the, like the whole process of getting there, especially these days. Once I arrive wherever I am, it's great, but I'm not crazy about it. So I find myself getting anxious when I'm traveling and having to breathe and really having to, I thought it was this way, or I thought I had to go to that person and they send me somewhere else, or I get to the airline, the cab, there's traffic. And when I get there, I've lost my flight. That's what I find more challenging than anything. Once I'm here, I've been okay. Also, I guess you can call this a challenge, but maybe not. I think it's how you look at it. I really like connecting with people once I am where I am. And if I can't, and that's what made Brazil a little difficult. We did meet people that were from the United States, right? So you'll find people like that, and they spoke Portuguese, and that helped. But I think sometimes it is the language. If I have to say it's anything, it's not being able to communicate. I like to be able to communicate with the people wherever I've traveled. So that's more of a challenge for me. Those things.
Yeah. But also along with the challenges, you have practices and knowing yourself and knowing what you need and, okay, how do I deal with this in a way that's going to support me,
That's right.
my health, my everything. And, that takes us stopping, and then just being aware first of what we're feeling, right? And then just saying, okay, what can I do to support myself through this to the best of my ability?
That's right.
And letting go, because everything always works out.
Because everything always works out. I think it was last year sometime. I'm on my way. I had just arrived to Oaxaca. I had come back from Lisbon, and I arrived here, and I'm in a cab, and I'm kind of hurried again. You know, I feel this bit of stress when I'm right, during the flight and getting to where I'm going. And so I get in this cab, and when I get here to Oaxaca, I am looking for my phone. I can't find my phone. All right. And I'm thinking, I have to find my phone. You know, I need my phone. It's my lifeline. I need my phone. And even then, when that happened, it was like, Joyce, it's okay. And within a couple of weeks, I had a new phone and everything worked out. But at the moment, it seems as if it's going to be a life-altering, change, not to have a phone. It's okay. No matter where you are in the world, they have phones. They sell phones. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
So I think exactly what you said, Fran. If I can feel that anxiety in my body, if I can feel myself and say to myself, I have to parent myself. It's okay.
Yeah. Coach is like self-coaching,
Yeah. It really is self-coaching. It really is self-parenting, self-loving. So it's all right. It'll be okay. It'll work out. Because it always does.
Yeah, I love that, Joyce. I mean, I'll call you Joyce because I know you Joyce and Joey.
I know.
Interchangeable.
Joey. Yeah, I changed my name to Joey from Joyce. Joyce always felt like a little strange for me, even as a kid. So I like Joey. Yeah.
Excuse me.
But it's okay. You can call whatever you like.
Okay. So wrapping up, what would you say the biggest gift has been for you experiencing this type of lifestyle and passion journey?
My biggest takeaway in this whole process of traveling, especially when I first got here to Oaxaca, many people come here for healing, all different things. People come here for healing. That was not my intention for coming to Oaxaca. But when I first got here again, it was I felt isolated. I felt alone. I didn't know people yet. All of it felt like I had just landed on Mars. That's how it felt to me. And I can feel this anxiety. I felt my sadness around leaving everything that I knew, my sadness around all of that stuff. My biggest takeaway as my time, as I continued my time here in Oaxaca was my connection with myself. I felt more and more connected to me. I felt more and more connected to, we're taught to always have, as children, we're taught in our Western culture, especially, we're taught to get a lot of our acknowledgement and everything from other people, our parents, and for our parents to say, it's okay, it's all right. And so I found myself here parenting myself like never before. Mm-hmm. And trusting my process and trusting that it'll be okay. And lots of gratitude these days, lots of gratitude out of it. I find myself grateful for everything from big things to, how comfortable my pillow is when I get down. For me, it's been learning gratitude, learning to trust, learning gratitude, learning to love myself, no matter when those things come up, when I lose my phone, instead of going through this whole thing of, you should have known, why didn't you?
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Everything will be okay. And, I remember my mom. That's how my mom used to talk to me when I was a kid. When I would get anxious about something, she would say, it's okay. Everything always works out. This is what she would say to me, but I never listened to her. What does she know? And now I find myself, it's okay. It'll be okay, because it always is. So I think I've learned to just be more grateful, to be grateful and to That's the biggest takeaway for me. That's the biggest takeaway for me. Also,
Big one.
also connecting with people, learning to connect with people. When I was a kid, we moved around a lot. There was a lot of moving around. So I never really had, when I connected with friends, if I made a good connection with a friend, I knew that was going to go by the wayside at some point because it always did. I was a kid. So I learned to make friends pretty quickly. So I've been learning here that that's a belief that I made up. And I can have these friends for as long as I can have these friends, and I can keep that connection, and it's okay. So for whoever comes into my life, it's all good. And not to say that some friends will not, distance themselves or cut the connection off. I have no control over that. But these days, if I have a friend that I connect with, I try to continue that connection. And if it doesn't work, well, I don't blame myself for it. I do the best I can in that connection. I try to connect again. And if they're not open to it for whatever reason, because we all have our stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're not open to it, I don't do a number on myself. It's like I go, okay, that's what they needed. That's what they needed. So, allowing people to opening my heart to people has been.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, thank you so much. This has been really fascinating. Your whole story I think it's going to really serve people listening, and maybe for those that have that little flame of travel, it's going to ignite that maybe a little bit more. If someone wanted to reach out to you, would that be okay?
Yes, they can. Absolutely. And they can get me at Serenity of Time. You have that at gmail.com.
Okay, beautiful. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that would be great. And thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your passion and your beautiful soul with us. And I'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to our interview today. And thank you so much, Joey, for sharing your years of travel and experience. I know that it's going to be inspiring to people to just take that leap. If you have that little dream in your heart of finding out about more cultures, more people, more places, more foods, more architecture, and everything that goes with travel. So some of the podcast highlights that we covered today was how Joey started traveling internationally with her kids when they were very young. And that really inspired her nomadic lifestyle. And then during the pandemic, it was a catalyst for her to leave the U.S. and settle in Oaxaca, Mexico. And there she developed a real love for the sense of community and culture there. And she really shares some practical tips for getting started in traveling and maybe living a couple of different places in the world. She talks about, maybe just getting your feet wet and staying for 1 or 2 weeks in a place that you're interested in and seeing how you feel, and then making some plans to move forward and maybe staying several months or even longer. So this episode, I think, was filled with deep love and community and adventure. And I know that if you have that little dream in your heart, go ahead and take the leap. And you can certainly contact Joey. She'd be happy to reach you. You can just reach out to you and share her experience. You can contact her at serenityofTime@gmail.com, which is also in the show notes. So again, thank you, Joey, so much for sharing your journey, your passion, and we'll see you next time.